Hi everyone. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So we're getting a big round of elections on Tuesday. It's coming up. Tuesday, the 4th of November. And first thing I want to say about this is something I've thought about frequently over the years. Why is it that the US seems to vote in early November, and specifically on Tuesday, most years, especially the elections we all know about, the federal presidential election every 4 years, the midterms in between every 4 years, but even now, lots and lots of local elections, state elections. From what I hear, there are something like 52,000 plus elections are being held on Tuesday, November. And here's where I go to an astrological zone that I typically don't spend a lot of time in because, while it's interesting, it doesn't give me enough variance, enough data, although to be honest I haven't studied it enough, so that could be why, but it doesn't give me enough to work with. So it's this notion that, first of all, you want to look at patterns in the US chart to see if you can get an answer for this. So then if you say, well, Tuesday seems to be the day. Tuesday as a planetary day is associated with Mars. Monday is the moon, which their English reflects it well. When it comes to Tuesday, you get better clues if you consider French or Spanish. In Spanish, Tuesday is Martes, which sounds a lot like Mars. Same in Wednesday is Mercredi or Miércoles in Spanish, connects to Mercury. Thursday is Jupiter. Friday, Venus. Saturday, Saturn. And the Sun is Sunday. And so, why on a Tuesday? Well, then you go to Mars, and specifically you want to look at Mars in the US chart. And here's where you find it in Gemini, but you also notice that it rules two separate houses, Scorpio, the 12th, and Aries, the 5th. And I have to say, it's a pretty good fit because the 5th is the place of contests, and it includes elections, literally. So if something is being contested and you're gathering votes or scores or anything to arrive at the conclusion, the winner, 5th, every time. So that fits. But what about Scorpio? Well, that also fits because Scorpio, as the 12th, which by the way is also the month of November, is in there. Scorpio in the American chart, in any country's chart, will be the institutions, the idea of institutionalized government. The system itself is literally parked in there. All the paperwork, all of the things that are being done by the government. So that also fits well for the Mars, though not quite as explicitly or directly as the 5th would. Of course, you then, if you're astute, follow astrology, you realize, yes, well, Mars, but Mars is square Neptune, and we certainly have seen all kinds of problems in recent years as Neptune itself has been challenging its own position by opposing it and squaring the Mars, and which is, by the way, where the Neptune was during the pre-Civil War years that then led to a really horrible civil war. So it's not a great place for it there. It seems to stoke lots and lots of division, including conspiracies and deceptions and lots of gaslighting and all of the Neptune keywords on the low end. So this, unfortunately, can also drift into the election process. And it would have been so much better if, for instance, that Mars were trining the Neptune instead of squaring it. Bottom line, it would have been a lot better. Well, this is the way it is, though. We have a square, so, but that explains that as well, right? All that said, they're happening when they're happening, and here's where I want to remind you again that there may be other solutions for the quandary that we're in, and if they happen, great. I'm all for anything, including all the way to unicorn events, things that are amazing, something or someone comes to save us, great. But we should assume that the logical and most likely way this is going to happen is through the election process, even if we know that at the moment one of the parties isn't really happy with the rules because they're not happy with the numbers, the statistics, the real ones, not the ones they make up, and so they are trying as hard as they can to change the rules, alter the rules, do whatever they can to make sure that they do better than they are supposed to do if you play it straight. But that's something we'll have to litigate as it happens. And in the meantime, my suggestion is vote, 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 and if possible, get other people that haven't voted yet, especially, to vote. And if anyone is in any doubt, whatever. The whole thing is get in there and vote. The actual real numbers that are out there are pointing to very good odds of doing extremely well in any election, literally, but especially these elections 2 or 3 days from now. And anything that is positive is good. It keeps people's morale up, keeps the momentum going in the right direction. That is, of course, most important probably for the New Jersey governorship and the Virginia governorship, true, because they're bigger profile, but literally everywhere, local, state, whatever, all elections are super important. And then the other thing I would say is, once we see the results, take everything you can get. If we do well on Tuesday, and I suspect we will, then see it as a victory. Understand that there's a lot of static out there, such as you'll hear things like, well, the Republicans are very, very unpopular, but the Democrats are just as unpopular. The Democrats may be, but the voting patterns have not shown that. Repeatedly, we've seen Democrats do well in elections over the last number of months, special elections, different places, whatever. This is extremely likely to continue on Tuesday. And so there are some stats that you have to be able to discern and figure out what is really happening. In my opinion, it's the voting patterns you want to watch. They're the most important. And so bottom line to all this is, I'll reconnect with you on Wednesday after the results on Tuesday. And to the extent that we did well, I'm going to say we're on the right track, moving toward an even bigger set of elections the following November after that, when it will become absolutely critical that on the federal level, the Democratic Party at minimum regains control of the House of Representatives, ideally the House of Representatives and the Senate, but at minimum the House. And I think that's what we're working toward, and I think that our odds are actually quite good.